it's a mysterious thing, the constriction itself. Because it is an illusion, and it's like, it is a mystery even that as well, like the idea of there being someone in here and this life, and you know, horrible really in that sense of like being outside inside, and you know, because there's no, the location goes as well, so the sense of being here and there goes.
Dawn, those times when you're, you know, when you're not doing much and you're sitting and everything, would you describe that as happiness or contentment? Because I was sort of discussing with someone recently whether there was a direct relationship between awakening and happiness.
Happiness, it's not a... Well, happiness is a kind of state, so it's just an okayness. You know, and states can come and go whether they're awake or not, so it's just a kind of general okayness with just sitting, or there can be, within that, there can be states of absorption, or there can be, you know, this could feel...
What do you think about when people say, oh, our true nature is happiness, or our true nature is peace? Do you think that's kind of misleading?
Well, the peace is there. The peace is there no matter what's arising. That's... Happiness is always seen as an achievement in time, isn't it? It's a kind of state of happiness. It's...
Well, it's a word that people use in different ways, though, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, but it's... I don't know. I think okayness is better. Like, there's just an acceptance, and within that there can be different depths of... I mean, there can be states of ecstasy within this, or you know, there could be higher kind of emotional levels that maybe you haven't experienced before that kind of arise after this, but it's just that you're at peace with where you are. Everything is here that you need. There's no going away to get that, you know. So maybe you're sitting in the tube train and you're kind of like, oh, you know, that's great, that's great, but it's not happiness, it's just... Mind you, tube trains are kind of fun sometimes. I don't know.
Well, I think it's just in contrast to its opposite, right? So words like happiness come up, like when you say okayness. I mean, I was thinking like you know, a sense of fulfillment was omnipresent, or was ever present, but that was only in contrast to the hunger of some sort that had preceded it all my life.
When
actually it's probably, its value is zero, but it seems to have a value because it's the opposite side to that.
I get what you're saying, because I think that's what I was alluding to with the forgiveness thing. It's not forgiveness or non-forgiveness or fulfillment or lack of... Or happiness, sadness.
Yeah.
It's just kind of okay, and it's all here now, and this is it. And again, within that, it can feel really good at times and really deeper or less deep, but it's always kind of okay.
Yeah.
Even when it's not okay, it's kind of okay. Like, you know.
I mean, on the forgiveness topic, you know, something that you said earlier on, which I absolutely fucking love, is radical acceptance. You know, and that's the forgiveness thing, right? In real time. So there is nothing to be, you know, nothing gets judged either way, because everything is touched with, you know, the light of your present awareness, but radical acceptance.
Yeah, and including the story, if that's appearing,
yeah.
Like it's innocent, isn't it? Like that
Yeah.
whole thing of, you know, I did this and it sucked, and yeah, it's just, yeah, innocent and kind of interesting. Not for everybody, I suppose. Maybe the interest is different, but it's nice to be free of the notion of failure. That is wonderful. That is such, that is forgiveness. That's self-forgiveness, isn't it? It's like, it wasn't your fault. There's nobody doing that. Nobody chose that. There's no one to fail. There's no one to succeed. And success is, everybody fails in the end. In a real sense, you die. Like, you're not going to take it with you,
Yeah.
But, so it's that. But there can still be denial overlaid on that, like the story saying, I had such a lovely time when I was young and but even that's seen as it's innocent too, isn't it? Or the victim story or whatever. But I think people can still play in roles or like archetypal things like I am the good friend or I am like get stuck in these kind of patterns of I am brave, I am I don't know, maybe a bit of that and
Is there any self-narrative thought?
that comes and goes here. It's always slowed down. There's periods with none and then there's periods with some. But it tends to be more neutral. So the suffering stuff doesn't stick around for very long. In every case, I was thinking back to Steve Taylor's book, like from all the empirical studies on it, it does slow the mind down. There's going to be a before and after in the story of time of how it changes the mind because it's very, it's got to, because the identity's just, whatever, it's just altered. And it can, some people it's gone completely for Gary Weber, but he gets it when he's got low, when he feels low blood pressure or something? I don't know when he gets it. Sometimes. Have you noticed any difference in the mind? If you don't mind me asking.
I still notice something, like I did something, and then,
Oh, right, okay.
I did something. But I notice like sometimes.
Comes and goes.
And also, but it's like it's useful. Otherwise.
It can be fun. Thinking can be fun. It's actually really pleasant at times if you're a thinker and you enjoy, engaging with that and like books and stuff. It doesn't. It can be quite nice to just sit and. It's an alternative because you might have spent a while just blissed out and empty, and you've got So it's nice in a way to have both. I think. It's the ruminative stuff that's the killer, isn't it, for everyone? Because it's boring, whine to that. I'm sure that falls away for most people. I would have thought, or at least it cuts off. It's might go back to the narrative at a later time, but.
And sometimes there's a sense like, let's say my personality is a pair of gloves, and then it's like you take them off, but then there's a sense of they're filling up somehow again, but
Okay.
like I'm using the gloves, or they're being used. Not crazy.
Crazy. There'd be a news like, what, like, what
Like it's just,
works?
it's just
Oh, just the work things.
if the gloves weren't there, then I just, like you said earlier, you'd just be sitting on the side of the street.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, which, nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's pretty damn cool. But yeah, I think it is nice having that opportunity to start out again, and I've talked about that, finding out your authentic self, being in touch with all the stuff you haven't been able to do, if the self-esteem, because the self-esteem issues, and I mean you can still have stuff like that, but there's no lack anymore, so in a sense you can be a bit more daring or risk with life a little bit. I think it does give you a chance to actually start over, because that's health as well, isn't it? Self-actualization, doing whatever's in you, whatever that is, the gifts you kind of came in with, or maybe have developed, whatever it is. It might just be a hobby you have, or expressing yourself, how you really feel with someone who allows you to do that, because you get a lot of people where they're not allowed to be sad, they're not allowed to be, you just have to be ebullient all the time, like a lot of people have relationships like that, or friendships like that, they're shut down to emotions, so it's good, and it's healthy, keeps the body healthy, and it really changes things when you find places and people where you can really be yourself. I mean, that's healing too, because some of those wounds take a bit of time to heal as well. It may not seem like it if you're blissed out, like you won't give a shit, but I do wonder, like some of the energetic stuff that the Kriyas, those spontaneous movements you get in Kundalini, and it's supposed to be the letting go of trauma, and it does seem like a lot of energy, there can be a lot of energy in the body that's released and stuff, and I do think that links to the insomnia that's often experienced after awakening, or either with energetic experiences as well, so, there can be quite a lot of neurosis drops away. It depends where it's come from, really, I suppose.
I've experienced that a few times where I've had like a heart awakening.
Oh yeah.
And there's so much energy and a feeling of, you could say happiness or joy or whatever. You literally can't go to sleep. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning, you're just wide awake. And it's happened a few times before. Yeah.
It's weird the way you can be like really blissed out and really sort of joyous, whatever, and not sleeping and be really pissed off about that. Yeah, I get that with energetic stuff. I get insomnia with it, and I love the experiences, but I hate bloody insomnia. It's really annoying. But yeah, and I guess it must be like all the energy's going into thought, or suddenly your heart's open and you've come out of the head. Then you're really in feeling, and it's just amazing. So I don't know. Perhaps it does use less energy, but who knows? I don't know.
I did have a question. Seems this month is a very popular month for non-duality teachers. I think a lot of people are coming from America and wherever, and have been just listening to different teachers. And yeah, one of the reasons I like listening to you is because you talk about even after awakening, there's still stuff to work on and whatever. What's your sense, maybe about yourself, of maybe blocks that come up and that type of progression? Even though it may seem to be like more personal.
Well, it's not. There are, because it's a different thing from awakening. Like there is no progression and no blocks, so it's seen or it's not seen. It's just, if the psychology's there. I mean, well, it's in the body anyway. So you may have no mind, but you still might be getting yourself in trouble or having no boundaries, and kind of there's knowledge of what's going on without the mind. We know that with babies and stuff, they're really tuned in. So it's not like there's blocks in this, it's just about psychological growth, which may take a different form after awakening, as in it may be very, very quick. It may just be a sense of having to see through or recognizing something, or it may take a while. But it is a phenomenon, like it is. I think because at one level it's story, but living goes on, and for no one at the same time, if you have a conversation, one awake person with another, it's likely they're going to talk about, maybe they'll talk about their problems, they won't just, they might actually talk normally. Because that's kind of, it's like, it doesn't change you. Like, we relate, you may not be so problem focused, or you might if you're going through a shit time, it's not, but we relate through language, don't we, as well as the beingness, which is just, you've got to say something, so I'm using being, just being, that love, that's, everything's arising in that, so the conversation, but you're not going to get close to someone just because of unconditional love. You've got to connect with language, and other things. So yeah, life kind of continues for no one. And some people can get in real problems then, because there's this sort of taboo of talking about, well, maybe there isn't, maybe there is, but I sense there is some aspect of taboo of talking about problems afterwards. But I'm only talking about problems afterwards because I had some, so, and I realised what that was costing me, and how it didn't take very much to kind of, not saying it's, in one level it's a process, and another level it's a kind of like quite evolutionary leap, just seeing through some stuff, but just realising how you can, reality, you're seeing reality and you're seeing unconditional love, but it's, the lens is distorted, so you're interpreting, because it's the mind is interpreting, but it's interpreting wrong in a way that's unhealthy, in a way that's not benefiting you. So there's stuff that can continue for sure, and so I said, if I was talking about this at the beginning, I probably wouldn't have talked about that. I would have been just like, whatever, but like, it's like, okay, so, and then the recognition when repression is lifted is that all the time you knew that it wasn't right, because it's a weird thing, because you kind of, part of the brain knows that you're allowing things that you shouldn't allow, and actually, but it's not named, and it's not, so if it's not named, and it's, and you don't know that that's wrong, it can just continue indefinitely because it's kind of okay. And so all the information is there all the time, we're picking up on stuff. Just, yeah, our intuition is really powerful. The more you get into that, it's just really.
For me, some of that repression comes from trying to control things, so there's a sense of self, and then fears, and then trying to control things. So it seems okay, and that can lead to repression.
Well, there can be radical acceptance, awakening, and controlling things as well. Like, or nobody's doing that, but that's the kind of way you move, or way the apparent person moves relationally, if you like, 'cause, but maybe unconsciously. Maybe they don't know that. Maybe the good thing about being very toxic is usually you don't suffer from it, everybody else does. So you might be just like in bliss when everybody else is going, oh no, here they come again. So, unless you're really bad, in which case you suffer and they suffer. But yeah, it's all really paradoxical and quite hard to talk about the psychology in some ways too, because it's different.
I like the expressions, it's exactly the same except 2 inches above ground. It's like, still the like you've made it very clear, the psychological structures are probably gonna be the same, maybe there's some,
Well,
can't predict it, but it's not like gonna go on forever for most people, would you say?
well, it tends to be background. So the ego is background, but it's not owned by anybody. So it's not, there's nothing and there's everything. But in the appearance, yeah. So, but there may, if there's no thought, like say, there's no sense of, there's still these patterns, and some people won't engage with, not everyone cares about that. Like for me, I find it fascinating and I love it. I really, I want to see more and more, like psychologically, I really find it fascinating and exciting. So growth seems exciting to me and I'm passionate about that, and I wasn't always, so I don't know, it may not be there. And there may be holding on to things, like you might be sitting around in a park bench, blissed out, and then not really allowing yourself to think, well, maybe I would actually mind reading the book. You don't really, I don't know, do you know, it's, I don't know. I couldn't read. Oh, not well for quite a while after. I find it difficult. Language I find it boring as well. Like just wasn't really engaged with that, I think my focus was shot. The focus was everything, so it's quite hard to focus. I don't know, it's different. Because this is focus,
Did you like not speak for a while? That like if you weren't interested in language, were you not interested in kind of interact or conversation?
I wasn't interested. Where I felt I had to, I did. I had experiences where I didn't always have to. With, spent some time around someone who didn't talk a lot. Like just being, or in the gaze and just dropping into this stillness. But I didn't find it an effort, because even that doesn't make any sense. There was no effort in anything, and yet the preference was no speech. No, like even going out was still fun in a way, but if I had a choice, it would be just sit on my own. A preference for being alone, a preference for being in nature. I just sit, yeah. Initially, it just seemed very amusing speech. It just seemed like
it is kind of amusing in a way. Like the Sadhguru made this point that he's like, if I start talking in a different language to you, you're just hearing noises, right? And so, that sounds like an obvious thing to say, but I don't know. From you as well, I don't know, but they say it's like, obviously there's limits to language, so I don't know how much, I'm sure you found it, because it's limited, then it seemed less, I don't know, to have less point to it. I don't know, is that true, or is that not?
Well, okay, so in the, the sort of honeymoon, like, it just seemed, like I say, laughable, but, like, I was really sort of drawn to, like, the energy around it, like, this is so important, I have to tell you something that's important.
Right.
And it's like, none of this is important, it's just, like you say, it's just noise, it's just sound, and, hey, have you seen this, this is, but I love language, I love connecting through that too, and I find it really interesting, but it's nice with, peace and the stillness and everything, but yeah, it's funny. Okay. And it's odd how that is not necessarily picked up on, because people can be lost so much in the seriousness of the narrative, you know, like, you know, I've got to tell you this, and it, you know, like, however casual it is, it's like, it's kind of like, you know, it sounds horribly unempathic. It sounds really, it's funny, and then, yeah, and then it just, I don't know. Yeah.
So do you think there is this quality of, not detachment, but a lightness? Because there's no unnecessary tension around things.
Well, you can get tension around things, but then that's not who you are, and it's not serious in the same way either, so, but less likely and less commonly, and it's just, yeah, just different, everything's just, I don't know.
There's no excess tension, it's just the right amount.
Well, there could be in the moment, like there could be a hell of a lot of tension, like,
If someone shuts your arm off, you might get a bit upset.
Does that upset you, that sort of thing?
I think that would be, well, you'd probably dissociate, that's the thing, that's the wonderful thing about being human, is like when we can't take it anymore, we dissociate, so you'd probably be viewing it from out here, maybe, if you're lucky, but you don't know that, of course, so there's going to be terror, there's going to be all the bodily reactions, you know, and then there's a let go, very often a let go, like, when there's nothing to be done, that free state is a kind of, there's endorphins and stuff released, so when you're in real shit, there can be, you know, it's released physically, there's nothing clinging on in that, but some people obviously are better dissociators than others. I would hope that's what I would do if something like, I hope I never experience that. I sort of think of reincarnation, I don't want anything. I don't know how, yeah, you sort of like mention these things, there's so many, you know, people who go through unimaginable, unremitting torment, you know, and I can't speak for that, I would never dare to, I have no idea what that's like, and you know, and the consequence of that, and you know, just sort of anyway, it's a dark stuff of unconditional love, isn't it? Accepting, you know, the acceptance, radical acceptance, everything, but you know, the unacceptable, but there's judgment of that, and you know, there's opinions of that, there's fear of that, there's everything arises, it's normal physiological responses to that, and you know, I don't want to come back. I can't think of any. I don't know. Yeah.
Do you still own a political opinion?
I never really had one. Well, I mean, you know, just, I don't know, like, because I was brought up in Northern Ireland, I was much more, I don't know, maybe it was quite, you know, the troubled times and all that. I had no interest. I've always been interested in fiction and poetry. Honestly, I'm minimal, okay, just minimal, but, you know, it's never been, I think I ran as far away from that as I could, like.
Were you in any of the places where it was happening, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, yeah, there was being affected by that quite, yeah, I mean, sort of, yeah. You mean the...
I mean the physical location.
Physical location, well, actually, it was, most of the time I was growing up in the country,
Oh,
which was like very, yeah, just, you know, lots of fields and cows and stuff like that. Very nice. So yeah, wasn't too bad. Didn't stop your neighbours getting their legs blown off and stuff like that. Sorry, that's another story, but didn't happen very often. But yeah, it was. It was. But anyway,
Did you document your own experience somehow? Did you have the desire to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I've written stuff down. You know, I have done. I think it's a good idea to do so, but I haven't. Yeah, I haven't got a book out there like most people. Like quickly off they go.
need to get one out, like the spiritual teachers.
Oh my god, there's so many of them now. Like it's just
No.
mountains and mountains.
Do you think you could say something? I mean, everyone has their own way of expressing it. This is why I guess people are useful in different ways because different people connect with that. But do you think, like, do you actually have a desire to help people awaken? Or you just, I mean, I maybe would assume you do because you're doing talks like this, or would you just like to express about it? Or
Like-
talk about it?
Well, you know, there's no being able to help someone to awaken. I'm just really, I have no idea what I'm doing here, but like there's no.
Is it you're just inspired to be here and you're here? Or is
I think I was really pissed off that I didn't, and I sort of thought, well, what would happen if I did? It just seemed, could I do this or not? And, you know, and I think when I realised that there were problems afterwards that I didn't see, and it was like, well, maybe there's some use in that. Maybe somebody will hear that. I don't know, like that's some massive urge to help or something, but it is quite nice when it does touch somebody and they feel free to share something, and it's like, actually, you know, just like say the taboo around it, or you know, it's because you might just talk to someone and they'll just be, you know, they're not, you know, you don't want, okay, so if you've been narcissistically abused and you talk about your awakening, and after awakening, you don't want somebody else minimizing or invalidating your experience because you've had it, that's been your abuse. So when you bring your story, you need to be heard, you need to be seen, you know, you had it up to here with that. So yeah, so maybe it's that, and you know, for people who've been through stuff that similar, because I'm learning all the time as well. So, but why? I don't know. I mean, you know, like one sense, it's like, I don't know. It's interesting because if you have any remnant of like projection of authority onto someone at the front of a room, try sitting in the front and there'll be nothing left. There'll just be nothing left, like not a thread. You know, it's, I don't know. Well, just, I don't know. Because I think that projection can, little shreds of it can continue, you know, until you...
projection of authority.
Yeah, or better than, or maybe someone who's, you know, really well known, their awakening's got to be deep, or even if their awakening is the same as mine, where you realise that people actually experience it quite differently, so maybe they're not, you know...
This
I think,
would bring me to another question. Sorry, did you have something
no,
else?
no.
I find this can be sometimes a controversial question, but I'll say it anyway.
Right.
People have this idea of awakening as it's happened and you're done, but I feel like you were saying maybe the opposite of that, and a guy I follow a lot stresses quite strongly that there are degrees of awakening, and that you can almost argue that, you know, there's, yeah, I mean, it never ends, really, awakening, but then it's like, maybe there was a start point of, I don't think you get past one sort of hurdle. I don't know. Again, it's hard for me to say. Obviously, also with language as well, but there is this idea generally thrown around of like when it happens for you that one time. And I'm sure there are like big breakthrough experiences, but do you think it is just one time, or do you think it is a breakthrough experience and then from there you continue to maybe grow or like deepen your awakening or become whatever, yeah?
I think only, well, I would say it's more the psychology may deepen, or your way of seeing this may become more free from, I don't know, from what you've heard, or, you know, you may sort of, I don't see it as ever deepening in a sense. That doesn't really make sense. I mean, more stuff comes to the light, but that's, I would see that as more psychological. I wouldn't, aspects of reality, again, that's much more on the relative level, become much more apparent, or, I don't know, more interesting maybe. But I think once it's been seen, like, it may be different, obviously, because of some people, some apparent people, it seems like a process, or I can't see how it deepens. Like it's seen, it's lived, it's here. It's, I don't know. It's not a language I'd use. What you?
I mean, I guess its nature is totality, right? On the one side, but I think what happens is kind of working on the person, the personal, you know, and uncovering more is revealed, you know, as time goes on. But it's kind of a separate thing from.
You're talking about like trauma healing.
Yeah, and just, you know, as you said, seeing your patterns as time goes along. You know, maybe you won't, maybe you don't see it instantly, but in 10 years' time, for one reason or another, it will become apparent. And I think that's always a work in progress, right? Or it's not even that you don't even know they're there. It's just maybe as time goes by, you get less and less lazy, and you address even that. So I feel like that's the thing that's a work in progress, is working on the human, on the psyche, on the psychological, on the personality. But as for the awakening side, I feel like that's there in totality. It's just, yeah.
You've never had like I don't know, maybe I should not say because it's hard. I think I'm just guessing. I have no idea. So you've never had like people talk like a satori experience. You've had like more of one, or you've had, and maybe again.
Not that's kind of
limits that.
Brought anything different than the original, you know. I think it's just when your awareness, you know, having another satori is just, yeah, there's nothing unique about it, you know. It was there in the first place.
Dawn, I want to thank you so much for coming. You know, I think this has been really something to be here, but we've got to shoot off. We've got
a train.
Kids and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I want to say thanks for being.
Oh, thanks for coming.
I think you got what's been expressed is what's been expressed.
Okay. I suppose we.
Yeah. And I hope you do another one, or whatever.
Will be next month, so.
Oh, will it?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
12th.
Yeah.
Check the meetup. I think it's the.
Oh, it's on the meetup thing, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I think it's the 12th. If that's the Friday, it's the second Friday.
After.
Yeah, just in case I get up to date.
Thanks everyone.
Where it is. Anybody comes in.
I would agree with what Peter just said. I think for me it's getting a glimpse of it. There's a bit of psyche resistance and old personas and old attachment that don't go away like very easily.
Has there been awakening there then?
I think a glimpse of it.
Okay.
And then one of the immediate, consequence of that is just my personal experience. I think I was stuck in a job that I hated,
Okay.
which I left. almost instantly afterwards, what am I doing here?
Oh, right, okay.
I
Brilliant,
resigned.
you got it there.
Instantly.
Right, okay.
But then, like, back to the resistance, and then, like, the mind activity starts again. Oh, how am I going to make a living? I invested so much in this, blah blah blah, and then I need to maybe go back or take something that looks remotely similar, etc. So I think there is like there's a bit of resistance, but it's all like psychological or personal, like because
It happens in the mind, right?
it happens in the mind, yeah. Or like fear, or like that's why I asked earlier about like letting go of like some other things, you know.
Well, I do like seeing it as all part of the wholeness, like Bob was saying, because it's the psychology is becoming more conscious. You're becoming more conscious, and you're becoming less harmful by being more conscious. Well, most people are like, but yeah, and it's not given like how. I mean, yeah, I mean that is incremental, and that's interesting in itself because you just think you know you awaken to this, you awaken to full consciousness, and it should permeate everything, but no way. And you can see that. I mean, you see any non-duality speaker, spiritual teacher, but of course everybody's got blind spots. They just do. It's just, but you'll never know what they are. But you might if you get close enough. You all right.
You might have someone maybe point that out to you, like maybe someone else who's awake. Have you ever had someone like tell you about a blind spot and maybe that helped you?
Well, you have to be careful there too, of course, because you can get unhealthy, toxic people who project all their shit onto you.
Right. But maybe someone
you trust,
who's clearly at ease.
Yeah. Okay, but not necessarily someone who's awake. I wouldn't trust someone just because they're awake. I wouldn't. No way. It's and I think as well, if you get to know someone over time, if like I have a friend, and she's really amazing, and she's really in touch with me. She's annoyed with me. She'll bloody well tell me. Really expresses everything, and I feel so safe with that. There's nothing hidden. No, everybody's got stuff hidden or whatever. But so I don't know. You start to, someone who's. You start to get a sense of what an integrated person looks like. When you meet them, you may never have met anybody who's properly integrated and awake, and if you do, you'll start to internalize that as well. So it's all got knock-on effects. You make them more healthy, they make you more healthy. When you meet someone who's very unhealthy, it probably will impact you in some ways, even if you see through it. But so, I mean, I don't know, but.
I think what you're saying is important because you're separating between waking up and the growing up that I think has been toxic spirituality in the past where gurus appear and they're like, there's a projection going on somehow of like, this is the final state that you all have to reach.
Oh yeah.
And then go and abuse this human sort of. So I think that what the message that's coming through is an evolution of what's possible in this realm for humans, or this integration of the waking up and the growing up, so that we're spiritual in society, not on a mountain. So I think it's important.
Yeah, it's amazing what we can project those ideals onto. I mean, it seems so ridiculous afterwards, like some of the most phony seeming, assholes, and you're like, it doesn't. And I think even when you do buy into it and you're projecting, like at some level, you're playing a game, like of fawning over or playing up to or submitting to, I don't know, a spiritual teacher or whatever, like. Again, you kind of, on one level you see through it, but certainly you can't name it until you kind of get to that point where you see, this isn't what I want to be spending my time doing, because it's, whether you're a doormat or whether you're on the other side of that and more abusive, it's inauthentic bullshit. It's another way of evading taking responsibility for how you are and what you feel, and, it's both. I mean, I prefer one to the other, but they're both pretty. But I find it interesting. Dr. Ramani talks about narcissistic abuse. I think she's a professor at California State University, where she says every guru is a narcissist. Like, no, I suppose that makes sense. Like,
What do you mean by guru? Is that good teachers or just the kind of gurus?
I suppose it would be teachers, because it's someone who's telling you, defining your reality for you, so telling you what you need to do, who you are, and you know, and what to do, to basically handing over your power. So I guess, I mean, that is, I mean, being in a relationship or friendship or a job role with a narcissist is seen as a cult of one, or cult of two, cult of one, isn't it? One, yeah, one person. So yeah, so it's just en masse. Because that's, you know, some of us were brought up, we weren't allowed to be ourselves. We were too busy looking after other people. And of course, the sort of narcissistic ones, they hate authenticity, they will try to destroy it. They're attracted to it, so they will look for somebody who's emotional, they've got sensation, intuition, and thinking, and they've only got thinking, they will destroy as much of that as they can, and so they hate it. So, anyway, you know, make you all paranoid. I always so I don't know. It's really, most life is not like that. Most life is nice people trying their best, being nice and friendly. No.
Would you agree with the idea of having multiple teachers and looking at multiple people to maybe avoid that sort of, because I feel that, you know, I can't speak for everyone, but there's been a lot of problems with organised spiritual things, not everything, but you know, you can look at organised religion, for example. You know, something maybe they even started with a good intention and then it was corrupted. Would you say just as an individual looking, not becoming too devoted to one teacher and looking at different ones, would you say that? Would you agree with that? Or have you not thought about that?
I wouldn't like to say, because you know, I can't tell someone how to live again, and it's like, maybe somebody will spend their time around one person and that would be great, you know, and multiple people, it could be, there's no way of knowing what's right for somebody. That goes. I think for me that's just gone. I really wouldn't want to, you know, even attempt to answer that. Or
because you're right, it's again, and even what, it's different for different people again, so it's like different people are good, but then maybe again there's an opposite as well, so yeah, I guess it didn't.
I mean, on the other hand, I suppose comparison, I mean, it's good to have a point of comparison with anything. Maybe there's something in that, but I wouldn't hold it too tightly either. It's like, so if you are around someone, maybe one person, and don't know what anybody else is like, you might be taken by surprise that someone's actually much more open, they're much more, they're able to laugh at themselves, they're much more free, they're much more down to earth, they're much more accessible, and you know, so you might not realise that that's a possibility. You might think, oh, awakening looks like this, or you know, get a kind of skewed view of how it looks and fall into that kind of reality, whereas you know, it might be something better. But it's just point of comparison, and anything's good, isn't it? It's like, you go on a date, you don't jump first person scene. Well, you might. It's probably.
Well, I suppose it's a good way of making sure of making sort of, so you don't confuse the messenger with the message. You know, if you're the type of person that would fixate upon say, actually, yeah, no, it's this guy. Yeah, I think the thing about doing due diligence of checking multiple sources is anything that they all say is probably probably what you should listen to, and then there'll be 1,000 pages of bullshit in every sect that's not so much.
I found it helpful, but I haven't had an awakening. So.
I would also caution just what everybody's saying. also. Like, you know,
Yeah.
because it doesn't make it more true. You know, like, it's funny how contagious bullshit is too.
It's true, yeah.
But yeah, okay, it's more true what you're saying. Yeah, that's more kind of rare.
When I think of organised religion,
Yeah.
you know, it's only people say, oh, you know, do you buy into organised religion? To the point where you know everything they say is the same, then I'm in.
Yeah.
And at the point where they separate themselves from those guys over there, now, you know. So there's some consistent essence that is shared by all of the major religions, and it makes up, you know, this much of what they're about.
I was trying to think of that Meister Eckhart, the better is the enemy of the good, as well. So
Right.
I don't know, like, maybe I'm just sort of skeptical of everything. I know what you're saying, and it's got a truth to it, but everything just seems to have a fundamental flaw, like once it's universalized.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes, I don't know, truth changes, I don't know, not the sameness, but the way it's expressed might, or, I don't know, and games shift over time, don't they? There's different ways of playing games, there's different ways of hoodwinking people, and we're imitative beings, so we learn via imitation, we're not allowed to think for ourselves, and, you know, so you read a certain book, and you read Eckhart Tolle, you might imitate his. I don't know, I think we're all kind of susceptible to all this kind of stuff too.
Right.
Depending on how you...
Yeah, I heard somebody say the teaching is not the teaching is how it impacts you, or something along those lines.
The map is not the territory, is another one.
Yeah, it's like, you can't really sum up truth, can you? So if what somebody says is a teaching, if it has no effect on you, it's kind of useless in a way, isn't it? But if it kind of gives you some kind of insight, then it's a good teaching, I suppose.
I think sometimes as well, I think for me, I've consumed like thousands of hours on YouTube and listening, etc. So it can be like collapse with sometimes mental activity actually. So you're watching, you're thinking, you're like awakening or doing something spiritual, but you're just like adding additional concepts and like trying to deepen the knowledge.
It's like people who are learning martial arts while watching YouTube in bed.
But it's sometimes I have this confusion and it becomes like a little bit too much and you don't know why you're doing it, but sometimes because my mind can be like active on like certain topics. So if I find, this is called spirituality, and therefore okay, I'm gonna learn everything about it, like digesting a big book of maths or something like that. So treating it like such a topic, and that can be like the danger actually with the quantity of information that is available right now. Actually,
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have realised that had you not done it.
Exactly.
So yeah.
You learn something from that information.
People get stuck with it though, don't they? Like, a lot of people, what do you do after you wake up? Like, it's it's very addictive, that as well, isn't it? And for some people it's a kind of way of edging out, isn't it? And then, or else they access a bit of peace, less suffering during watching those things. And, yeah, quick, sorry. I'm looking at the clock before you start.
Did you experience any fear during your awakening?
Fear?
Were you like afraid that it's coming and gonna consume you, or?
Only right at the point of the kind of seeing and nothing of everything, there was, I don't like this, like, oh God, like, trying to, almost as if, there's no words to express it, but almost as if wanting to be able, whatever was there before that was able to kind of, felt like I was able to grab onto experience or life or something, wasn't there, and I hated it. I didn't like it for a second. It was fucking terrifying, and then it wasn't. It was just love and whatever. But yeah, it's just impossible to articulate that. Yeah, death, I suppose, is closest to it, but it.
Oh wow.
But a death that's just, yeah, it's just an instant. It wasn't. It's impossible to put it in time as well, but it kind of just, you know. Some people experience, and then you get the ones who just laugh. You know, that I suppose that's quite a common one as well. You know, I don't know. because it is odd. There was a sort of sense of like things adding, like experience doesn't add anything to you, but there's not that, there's no, because there's no ownership here, it's just life and there's no being able to grab hold of anything. So can be a bit disconcerting in a way, but it's not because of the love, it's kind of held in that maybe, I don't know, but it's definitely much nicer than what before. Like I don't remember how it was, but I can remember some of it.
Yeah, I would definitely describe it as like agony and ecstasy at the same time. But it felt like being ripped apart by pleasure. So yeah, so it's very difficult to describe because I'm being utterly destroyed, and yet it's fucking lovely.
Oh, ripped apart by pleasure. That's it's nice. It's a nice way to end the.
It just felt like my heart was, as the love and the energy poured up through me and just busted me open. It was fucking terrifying, but not.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm not there resisting. I'm just like, oh my god, it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.